Well, at what point do you pursue the same set of policies with no result? How long do you go?
Is anybody suggesting you do that?
Well, if he comes out Thursday night and doesn't radically change direction, then that is what we have. We'll have more of what we've already been doing.
He's going to make some sort of big jobs initiative pitch, don't you think?
But the big jobs initiative from him is always another version of the initiatives we've had over the last several years.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's
All right, so you're more optimistic about this than I am.
I'm
We're going to come
not
back with more constructive. All right. I'm not constructive. I'm deconstructive. We're back with more Gang of Four on a Friday morning. You can vote in the JR poll at 599-5555. We have a lot of things we'll talk about with the gang. But first, Elizabeth Ruiz in the KTSA 24-hour newsroom.
They're not.
Exactly.
And
I
that's
don't
why
see
we're
anybody
talking
out
about.
there who has any better plans.
Right. I mean, it is systemic. It's not just him. It's a total. It's like a collapse. It's
Okay,
bizarre.
here we go. Mike's going on. 10:32 on News Talk 550 KTSA. The show just kept on going there during the
And
commercial
some
break.
of the best stuff happens when
I
the mic
know
is
this.
off.
I interrupt them, bring them back down to the show here, and pull them down off those lofty heights they attain during the commercial breaks. We have on our Gang of Four today Elaine Wolff from Plaza, thearmastx.com, Dr. Masarat Ali, and Ken Slavin with a house that you have got to... No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I don't think there's probably any way this speech turns things around for him. Even if we dare hope, Elaine, that he admits this isn't working or swings to the center or whatever.
The center from the right,
odds,
correct.
oh yeah, right, in your fantasy. Yes, he's that right-leaning Democrat. I don't know. I think that neither political party at this point would even allow a leader or a nominee who questioned the orthodoxy of big government and government solutions. Both parties now are the parties of big government. That's why we're locked in a permanent state of big government. That's why whoever stands at that podium Thursday night is going to, in some form or fashion, say, I can fix this, and I've got the tools, and if they'll just work with me. I feel like in a few years we're going to have a Republican president standing up there, perhaps with a Democratic Congress, Elaine, giving a quote-unquote jobs speech. I just have this Groundhog Day feeling that we'll all be sitting here in a few years having this discussion again, and only the names will have changed.
What would you like if you were going to do one of those lame, here's what the president should say pieces? What would you tell him to say?
I don't pretend to be an expert, but I just hope I live to see the day that there is someone who actually has created wealth and now stands at that podium and is humble enough about what government can do, respectful of people who actually have skin in the game. Politicians aren't risking their own money with these schemes. I respect people who put their own money. Dr. Ali, you put your own money in your business. If you had failed, you'd have lost your house, you'd have lost your shirt, not somebody else. And I just hope that the day comes when the person giving the job speech is someone who actually has created a job. And knows what that means, and knows what you have to signal. Before you even do anything, I think you have to send the right signal to the private sector that you don't hate them, and you don't blame them, and they're not all evil, and they don't all have corporate jets. And America goes to work every day for people who create jobs. We don't go to work every day for our governor or our senator or our president. I mean, what gets you out of bed in the morning? You have a boss. You have somebody you have to report to. You have a job.
George Bush sent plenty of Valentines. George W. Bush sent plenty of Valentines to the private sector, right? I mean, we were still in that period.
Please don't
the
make
naughty
this.
aughts
But
where we were
please, I'm not defending. I didn't say anything about George Bush. I won't defend him.
But you're saying we want this notion that we don't demonize the private sector, which I agree with. But I'm saying that in and of itself obviously doesn't.
George Bush had no more idea about this than the current guy does. Let's not make this about the other party was worse. I'm not saying that. I'll let you have that.
I'm not having that conversation. I'm just questioning this notion that just by not demonizing the private sector that somehow
But you
gets
can't.
us going again.
You're not. But you're
That's
not going to get us going as long as you say it's Main Street versus Wall Street. I mean, that's a ridiculous
so is your
thing
theory,
to
because
say.
FDR used to say things like that, right? Are you saying that the war was the only thing that got us out of that pinch?
Elaine,
I
do you
mean,
think seriously?
And that was a total blue.
Do you
blood
think
fellow.
seriously that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was viewed by the barons of industry the way Barack Obama is viewed by them today? Do you really think so?
I honestly don't know, but certainly there was that kind of rhetoric at the time on both sides, right? I mean, he used to say things like, "I welcome their enmity" or something along those lines, right?
But Elaine,
and he put
it's not
policies
even
in place
comparable.
saying, "We will have revolution." You know, there was this fear: we will have revolution in the countryside in a matter of months if we don't do something radical. He did some radical things, which kind of stabilized stuff, and then the war came along. But I'm just asking you if
I think it's the other way
I'm questioning this
around,
notion
but
that you
that's
don't
okay.
have, you know, that
The war is what stabilized things.
I think that you had those programs that kept things from absolutely going completely down the hole, and then the war stabilized and got.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree on the New Deal, but again, you can't be serious that a guy who was on a first name basis with the Rockefellers and that class is the same as a president who, with a couple of exceptions like Jeff Immelt, demonizes them at every turn. You can't possibly think that's comparable.
You're making this sort of because they all went to the same.
I would say
kind of
this.
argument?
I would say this. You can't blame the people who are going to actually be the ones who have to invest the money and take the risks and create the jobs or expand the factories. You can't blame them if you want them to actually do the behaviors that lead to a healthier economy.
So you're not saying that it's not right that they don't take some blame. Is that correct? You're saying maybe they take some blame, but you just can't say that?
I don't think the president should be assigning blame. I think he should be asking himself and then offering to us the ways in which he is going to get out of their way.
Yeah, that's an interesting American trend. Maybe they do it in other countries too, where we basically don't. It's like we know you did something inappropriate or bad, or it was a bad policy.
We're not in a
and we're not
recession
gonna-
because they did something inappropriate,
And we're not going to make
Elaine.
you stand up and take your lumps. We're just going to say
Take
it's
their
cool.
lumps.
Do
The
something
private
nice
sector
now.
has taken its lumps. It's the federal government that hasn't taken its lumps.
Part
The
of the
federal
private
government
sector-
is expanding hiring and posting new jobs. It's the private sector that's cutting back and eliminating jobs.
Really, that's why we keep seeing these quarterly reports where people are posting some of the highest profits that they've ever had. I don't understand.
But that's
it's just not being.
but that's a serious minority of people. That is not.
It's a serious
mainstream
minority
America.
because they keep it to themselves instead of spreading it down.
This
to the
this
economy.
number I
That's
just
what it's
read
minority.
is that the only part of our economy where people are getting hired and jobs are being created is the government sector. So don't tell me they've taken their lumps or nobody's taking their lumps. We in the private sector, we've done the cutbacks. I've watched this company lose a third of its size in the last few years. We've had to cut back and make do with less. I would like to see the federal government have to make do with less, and I haven't seen it yet under a Republican or a Democratic president.
Okay, right. Just so we've talked about this before. That will mean fewer jobs, right? Because there are a lot of people that are employed by the government at various levels from money that flows down from Washington. I'm just asking you this. Why do you think it is that on the one hand you have some industries posting record profits, which we've seen that in the banking industry, we've seen that in the energy industry, and yet you're having job stagnation? That should tell you something, right? I mean, about what their policies are, about you should ask questions. What are we doing with that money? How do we incentivize that money getting back into the economy to create jobs? Because the notion is, if you've got more profits, right, that you will invest, and that investment then creates jobs. Why are we not seeing that then? I'm just
So
saying,
the
let's
way
ask
you
those
view
questions.
the way you view the economy is all of these companies that are laying off and shutting down branches and stores and storefronts, they actually are doing very, very well, but for whatever reason, they are pretending to be under privation. They're pretending they need to cut back and lay people off, but in reality, they could keep them employed.
I'm saying if you then post record profits, I think that raises a question. Maybe you ought to be investing.
Who's
in the economy
posting
rather than
record
pulling back.
profits?
There has been banking companies that have posted record profits, some of the major banking industries, and there have been energy companies that have posted record profits.
But see, that's
All
why
within
I
the
say
past
I go
year.
back to what I said. That's a minority compared to all the other small businesses and other, medium-sized companies and individual entrepreneurs in this country. I'm not sure how what they're doing would affect Main Street
Well, I guess
America.
by
Maybe I'm
your
wrong.
thinking, then the president shouldn't give a job speech.
Well, I don't know what a job speak is going to accomplish. Jobs policy, some kind of policy might be nice. I could care less about this.
But I mean, if you're right,
Yeah.
then there'd be no stopping that behavior.
If I'm right about what?
If you're right that these greed heads are
I'm not-
sitting on the money and raking in the profits and rubbing their hands together like the little guy in the Monopoly game with their monocles and their top hats.
See, you're the one who's demonizing it. I'm
demonizing you.
I'm saying this. Is,
I'm demonizing you. I've decided to
I'm saying
demonize
this
you.
is clearly maybe some behavior that's happening. I'm not.
All right,
I'm not putting.
but let me just finish the thought. What can he do then? If these evil people will not do the right thing as you define it, then what can he do?
We have to talk to Congress about enacting some policy. What is a policy? I don't know. I'm not a financial
Like
person.
what?
I
Like
don't know. What kind of
like
policy?
governing these companies from
Well,
Washington?
here's an example of sorts, right? So why do we have things like the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation? Because those captains of industry said, you know, we really don't want to pay these taxes. What if instead we had a foundation, and so we don't pay taxes on this money, but we promise to do good things with it? And I think arguably some very good things have come out of having a nonprofit industry, right? Some things get addressed that would otherwise not get addressed. You have people like Bill and Melinda Gates who come along and try to address malaria in a fundamental way. So I think that type of policy. I'm not a financial wizard. I have no idea what it might look like exactly job creation-wise, but Washington can put policies in place that are not punitive. People will still try to say it's punitive.
More
but-
jobs is to have more nonprofits.
no, I'm saying as an analogy, that was a way in which you met both something that industry wanted, which was not to spend that money, not to give that money over to Washington, but it also created something good for society. That's the analogy I'm making.
Unfortunately, I think we have
Yeah.
far too many nonprofits. They're called businesses. They're not making a profit. All right, we have more Gang of Four coming up. It's 10:41 into the newsroom for Liz on 550 KTSA.
Services underway for
All right, we just have a few seconds here before we get to the news at 11 o'clock from ABC in our KTSA 24-hour newsroom. I'm hesitant to throw anything at Gang of Four because I don't see how we could resolve it in less than a minute's time. So how about this weather we've been having?
Oh God. What, 70, is it 75 days of 100 plus
This is small talk before
weather?
the newsroom.
Yeah. Pretty bad.
Keep
101, 101 today.
Got 30 more
What,
seconds.
what are
Keep
the
going.
watering restrictions now? I know my lawn.
Oh, this is fascinating.
This is
We're
great.
really holding them to the
I
news.
think, come on, let's go.
right.
Something else. We can do something
All
else.
right, all
I've taken to having the
By
that
the-
evening cocktail holding the hose outside and watering the
By the way, I've
grass.
got an email here from
It's made a very
Grady.
interesting visual.
Grady says I should stop arguing with the socialist lady, which could be you, Elaine, or I don't know.
He said, stop arguing.
Are you the socialist lady? The socialist lady. We're going to put that in all
The
caps.
socialist libertarian.
11 o'clock on KTSA San Antonio.
from KBC.
Elizabeth Ruiz, Gang of Four. Gang of Four,
Hi,
Elizabeth Ruiz. So do you guys realize today that we have on duty here at KTSA a Texas Radio Hall of Fame anchor and a Texas Radio Hall of Fame traffic reporter
Oh.
and a never going to be in the Hall
Well,
of Fame.
I knew about Liz's award. I've always said Liz is the best in the business. I've
Yeah, like why
always
did it
said
take
that.
so long, right? Why did it take so
Yeah.
long? I mean, what were they waiting for over there at the Hall of Fame? What did take so long, Liz? Did you ever find out? Oh, is that like in baseball? You have to stop playing for 5 years before you can get in the Hall of Fame. So we would actually have had to fire you 5 years ago, which we
And
wouldn't-
I'm glad they didn't wait till you were 80 going, this is
Yes.
Ruiz.
and Johnny Shannon. Johnny,
Yes.
don't be bashful in there. Yeah, Johnny Shannon doing it too.
Absolutely, that's wonderful.
All right, listen to this. They just did a study. This is astonishing. They found that the average woman's, the number of grooming items or personal care items in the shower for an average woman is 14. 14? You don't have 14? Well, I think they mean like, either on those little racks or on the, the lip of the tub. I'm trying to picture how you could do that.
Well,
That would pull my shower head right off the wall.
well, I guess there's exfoliation, and then there's moisturizing, and there's shampooing and conditioning.
This is the average. That means there are women
And
with
foot
more.
scrub versus body
Yeah.
scrub. Yeah.
So, Jack, you want to impact the economy even more than what it is?
No, I guess we should be glad they're buying all those products.
Oh,
That's right.
There's
Ken,
also,
you're kind of a metrosexual guy. I mean, how many do you have?
It's kind of scary how many products
than
are in
14?
my. No, not in the shower. I'm like Liz. A lot of it's not in the shower. It's post shower when
How
you have
about
to
we add
restore all the
shower and
moisture that
sink?
was lost from the soap.
Shower and sink combined, would that add up to 14?
Probably.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Maybe
scary.
it's shower and sink combined.
Yeah.
All right.
And does that include? Is that just products, or does that include appliances like toothbrushes and things?